Chapter 16, Essential Early Taoist Philosophers and the Schools of Daoism from about 600 to 400 BCE. Part 2, Laozi's Statecraft, Yin and Yang, Qi, and Religious Parallels. Written and produced by Thomas Tyseal, copyright Thomas Tyseal unless otherwise noted. Laozi lived in an empire under authoritarian rule, where rulers amassed wealth from the poor and ruled by force. Laozi had a different view of statecraft, arguing that virtue, Di, is in being humble, promoting virtue, and viewing others as you view yourself. He wrote, "The great state that lowers itself before the small state governs the small state. The small state that lowers itself before the great state is governed by the great state. Some lower themselves to govern, some lower themselves to be governed." Cultivated in yourself, virtue becomes real. Cultivated in your family, virtue grows. Cultivated in your village, virtue multiplies. Cultivated in your state, virtue abounds. Cultivated in your world, virtue is everywhere. Thus, view others through yourself. View families through your family. View villages through your village. View states through your state. View other worlds through your world. How do you know what other worlds are like? Through this one. In statecraft, force is not a virtue, Di. Laozi observed, "Trying to govern the world with force, I see this is not succeeding. The world is a spiritual thing. It cannot be forced." And he advised, "Use the Tao to assist your Lord. Don't use weapons to rule the land." Weapons are not auspicious tools. He, the Taoist, wields them only when he has no choice. When the Tao is absent from the world, war horses are raised on the border. In warfare, there's a saying, "Rather than a host, better to be a guest. Rather than advance an inch, better to retreat a foot." Imagine a small state with a small population. Let there be armor and weapons, but no reason to employ them. Let people return to the use of knots and be satisfied with their food and pleased with their clothing and content with their homes and happy with their customs. In statecraft, the Tao prescribes a minimum of regulations and taxes and lets people govern themselves. Laozi explained, "The greater the prohibitions, the poorer the people. The sharper their tools, the more chaotic the realm. The cleverer their schemes, the more common the bizarre. The better their possessions, the more numerous the thieves. Thus does a sage declare, I make no effort, and the people transform themselves." Don't restrict where people dwell. Don't repress how people live. If they aren't repressed, they won't protest. When the government stands aloof, the people open up. Where the government steps in, the people slip away. Happiness rests in misery. Misery hides in happiness. The reason people are hungry is that those above levy so many taxes. This is why they are hungry. The reason people are hard to rule is that those above are so forceful. This is why they are hard to rule. Laozi advised, in statecraft, planning for future need, Accumulating virtue, being content with little, and not displaying wealth is virtuous. D. Bestowing no honors keeps people from fighting. Prizing no treasures keeps people from stealing. Displaying no attractions keeps people from making trouble. The great way is smooth, straight, but people love byways. Their palaces are spotless, but their granaries are empty. They wear fine clothes and carry sharp swords. They tire of food and drink and possess more than they need. This is called robbery, and robbery is not the way. In governing people and caring for heaven, nothing surpasses economy. Economy means planning ahead. Planning ahead means accumulating virtue. Accumulating virtue means overcoming all. Plan for the hard while it's easy. It's easy to plan before it appears. In Statecraft, Laozi taught it is virtuous to protect the poor and even the bad. It is also virtuous to take from the rich to give to the poor. He wrote, "Those who see the small have vision. Those who protect the weak have strength. Those who use their light and trust their vision live beyond death. This is called holding on to the crescent." The Tao is creation's sanctuary, its holy refuge. Treasured by the good, it keeps the bad alive. Beautiful words might be the price, noble deeds might be the gift. How can we abandon people who are bad? The way of heaven is like stringing a bow, pulling down the high, lifting up the low, shortening the long, lengthening the short. The way of heaven takes from the long and supplements the short, unlike the way of humankind, which takes from the short and gives to the long. Some of the sayings in the Daodejing make no sense at first reading. Consider this one. Higher virtue of the Tao isn't virtuous, thus it possesses virtue. Lower virtue of those who engineer it isn't without virtue, as it's self-conscious in claiming virtue, thus it has no virtue. Higher virtue involves no effort or the thought of effort. The key to understanding this quote is knowing that Laozi was in a philosophical battle with excess state regulation. The state often attempted to engineer social reality, to plan, shape, and order a society in crisis through creating labels and regulations which must be followed. By contrast, Taoist statecraft should be spontaneous and effortless. Nature is the best at ordering, and nature employs no labels and regulations. Thus, Taoists advise non-action, what they call wu wei, a return to natural order and virtue. As you've seen, however, Laozi's wu wei is not non-action. Those who follow the Tao act. They protect the poor and do not seek riches. But this action is natural, flowing from the Tao. Here's some more seemingly nonsensical sayings in the Daodejing. When the great way disappears, we meet kindness and justice. When reason appears, we meet great deceit. Get rid of wisdom and reason, and people will live 100 times better. Get rid of kindness and justice, and people once more will love and obey. Taoists believe that distinctions like kindness and justice emerge only when the Tao recedes. When people drift from the way, their kindness and justice must be regulated, and their reason is often a cover for deceit. The Tao, by contrast, if we learn to follow it, dulls the edges of the labels we assign and prescribe and unties the tangles of our reason. While Lao-tzu waxed eloquently on the Tao, he said little about Qi. The word occurs only 2 times in the Daodejing, in chapters 10 and 55. Some say it is also in chapter 42, but this requires a non-literal translation. Talk about Qi started as a trickle and over time became a flood. As with other central Taoist concepts, the origin of Qi is obscure. The most ancient character for Qi, 3 stacked horizontal lines, appeared on oracle bones during the Shang dynasty, which began about 1600 BCE, and on bronze in the Zhou dynasty, beginning in 1028 BCE. As you can see from the figure at far left labeled 1, the 3 stacked lines suggest heat waves rising from the earth. Gradually, the ideogram changed, evolving through forms labeled 2 through 5. Ideogram 5 gives more clues as to the early meaning of Qi. The top part again represents rising steam and the bottom part rice. Thus, Qi is something ethereal, aerial, and good, like steam coming from rice. Gradually, the concept acquired metaphysical meanings. Qi became equated with air, vapor, or breath, and then a kind of universal, moving, sustaining energy or vital force, not unlike the Holy Spirit in Abrahamic religions, prana in Vedic religions, and pneuma in classical Greek philosophy. In the Tao Te Ching, chapter 10, Laozi spoke of Qi as breath. Carrying the body and soul and embracing the unity of the One, can you be without separation? By gently focusing on the breath, Qi, can you be like a peaceful infant? In chapter 55, Qi also refers to breath, the balancing breath of a baby that sustains it. Some think that when Lao-tzu spoke of the unmanifest eternal Tao, he was speaking of Qi. That, however, is conjecture. As to yin and yang, it is mentioned only once in Lao-tzu's Daodejing in chapter 42. It reads, "All things carry yin, yet embrace yang." There is little in the Tao Te Ching and early Daoism to characterize Daoism as a religion. The Tao Te Ching does not seem to be a revelation. Lao-tzu does not appear to have had disciples during his lifetime who were passionately attached to him. Nor is there evidence that early followers were fixed on a mission to effect intense social change or personal salvation. For these reasons, and to contrast it against the religious version of Daoism which arose some 500 years after Lao-tzu, the teachings of Lao-tzu are often referred to as philosophical Daoism. Daoism, however, never relied exclusively on the teachings of Lao-tzu, even though he is frequently credited as being its founder. Rather, the teachings of Lao-tzu were incorporated into the shamanistic beliefs and practices of the masses. The Tao of Lao-tzu was easy for shamanistic practitioners to adopt, as they could attribute their power to the Tao that Lao-tzu described. There are, however, religious parallels to Lao-tzu's Tao. As you've seen, the Tao is the source of heaven and earth. It gives birth to 1, heaven, which gives birth to 2, earth, which gives birth to 3, all life. It is the, quote, mother of us all, unquote, here before heaven and earth. It's also the sustainer and perfecter. It makes the incomplete whole, the crooked straight, the hollow full, the worn out new. It begets and keeps things, raises and trains them, steadies and adjusts them, maintains and protects them. In all but name, the Tao is the creator spoken of in the Hebrew Bible and the Bhagavad Gita, and like Ahura Mazda in the Gathas, the Tao is also the first and the last. Here's some more religious parallels to Lao Tzu's Tao. As Hebrews must walk in the ways of God, and Zoroastrians must follow and obey the Father of the good mind, the Creator of truth and right, and the Lord Judge of our actions and life, those who follow the way, Tao, must be trained by the way, and must walk in its way, being humble and lowly like water, helping with kindness, speaking with honesty, and resisting personal desires. As Hebrews must not trample on the heads of the poor and deny justice to the oppressed, and Hindus must be like Brahman, the protector of the world, those who follow the Tao must be compassionate, see the small, and protect the weak. Lastly, consider this. Being formless, empty, and above any attribute or quality, the Tao is like the God of Israel, which, while often described metaphorically as if he has a form, must be formless, as the Hebrew God is one and everywhere, so cannot have a form, as there would be a place where he was not. The Tao is also like Ahura Mazda in Zoroastrianism, whose name meaning spirit, Ahura, of wisdom, Mazda, implies formlessness. Similarly, the Tao is like the Brahman of Hinduism, who is bodiless and above any representation of God, whether of fire, wind, sun, time, breath, or food. As we'll see, in Christian theology, the Tao is also the Uja or hypostasis, the underlying reality of all things. It's time now to look at some of the other Taoist philosophers of this era with names you've probably heard of, like Confucius, and a few that you may not know, but thankfully will soon.